Thank you all for being here. We got some folks joining us on the live stream, so we're confirming.
Yeah.
They're getting the good audio and sound.
All right. I think we're looking pretty
Looking good.
solid there. Okay.
Okay.
Let me see. I think you're streaming. I think you're recording.
Okay.
You are doing all those things.
Okay, beautiful.
Yep, you are. Okay.
Wonderful. Well, good evening, everyone. So happy to have you here. It's truly an honor to have you all here. I know there's so many things you could be doing with your Thursday evenings. I really appreciate you being here in this lovely little space with us. I want to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. My name is Megan Robertson, she, her pronouns, and I'm a writer, a playwright, a journalist, a musician, and an actor based in SF. I'm originally from Georgia, the Atlanta area, a town called Dalton, Georgia. And the work that I do has been really focused on telling hyperlocal community stories. So I was at USF doing their Performing Arts and Social Justice program a couple years ago, and I started to learn about this thing called documentary theater, verbatim theater, and I was so excited because it's this way of interviewing people, hearing their stories, and turning those into what you're going to see today. So everything you're going to see today, this is a real San Franciscan, their stories. I sat down with them over a lunch or a cup of coffee and asked them some questions about what they thought about technology and how technology is changing the city and the culture of the city and also our own personhoods. And everyone was asked essentially the same questions, the same jumping off points. And I was really interested in just investigating, kind of what this technological culture is doing to the fabric of kind of our society here in the Bay Area and the thing that people love about the Bay Area, if that's still the same, if it's not. So I had these questions I was interrogating. I started this project 2 years ago for my senior thesis at USF and since have been expanding it. And so I'm so grateful for you all being here. And I think it's going to be a really lovely evening of hearing San Franciscan stories. So this is a community work, so I want to thank the community. I want to make some specific shout outs. Thank you so much to Eric Whittington here at BART and Beckett for letting us use the space. This is truly one of my favorite spots in San Francisco, and we're going to have a 10-minute intermission about halfway through, and I encourage you, look around, grab a book, talk to Eric, and we'll learn more about the space, come out and see some of the jazz performances they do here, some of the other book signings and releases and readings. Truly such a lovely space. I also want to thank some folks from USF who helped and encouraged the project. I want to thank Stephanie Hunt, who's here this evening. I want to thank Eli Nelson and Paul S. Flores for their support along this process. I also want to thank my family. I want to thank Paige Watts and Russ Barnes, and then also the lovely Mary Jane Agnew for helping put this on and support. And then I really want to thank all of the actors who are here today, all the interviewees who shared their stories. This is essentially on the process to getting a full-blown production of the show put on. So this will be an evening where we'll invite you to kind of imagine the world, imagine what it could look like, and interact with these folks' stories, kind of think about how your own story engages with that. And yeah, it's so wonderful to have you all here. I also want to do a bit of a land acknowledgement. I know they've gotten a little performative these days, but I think given the nature of this piece, I really, really want to honor the Ramaytush Ohlone people for their stewardship of this land and encourage all rematriation efforts. So thank you all. Like I said, we're going to have a 10-minute intermission. Restrooms are going to be down that hall to your left if you need it any time during the performance. As mentioned, this is a very casual reading, so feel free to come and go as you please. If you need to step outside, go to the restroom during the performance, feel free to do that. And yeah, thank you for supporting. The actors here some of them are improvising on the fly due to some sicknesses or people calling out. So I really appreciate them and appreciate you all going on this journey with them. So if you'd like to support the show, I'll be back to chat at the end about it. Donations are wonderful, or even just posting about it on social media. We have a little social media Instagram if SF collapses, if you want to check out that Instagram account and just support, tag, and share your experiences. So thank you all, and thank you as well to the lovely Michaela Jasmine Brown, who is doing some original compositions for the show. And then the lovely Grace Shaver, who's up here with me, who's going to be reading stage directions. So thank you, Grace. And then Clyde Java somewhere taking photos for us. So thank you, Clyde. Appreciate you. And yeah, thank you all so much for being here. enjoy If San Francisco Collapses. Thank you.
If San Francisco Collapses, Where Are You? A new documentary theater play by Megan Robertson. Story of the play. As we live in an age defined by technological advancements, this documentary theater play examines technology's impact on the region which birthed it, the San Francisco Bay Area. San Francisco historically has been a mecca for revolutionaries, artists, and activists. How does this truth coexist with the significance the city now holds for the tech industry? Through memories, figurative recollections, and calls to action, this documentary theater play examines the inner lives of those drawn to San Francisco. What does this technological pull do to personhood and the fabric of our city? Setting: San Francisco, California. The 2020s, post the onset and major global quarantine of the COVID-19 pandemic. In the staging of this play, there should be 8 frames upstage. The structure should be 2 levels with 4 characters' frames on each level. Each character is on stage for the entirety of the play. They are in their own world, just barely visible to the audience, until it's time for them to be fully seen. Projections and gobos can be used to illuminate their worlds. There is a superficial quality to their containment. The frames appear almost digital in nature. It's hard to tell whether the character is actually there or if it's just a projection. Each character may have whatever props and set pieces are needed in their frame to create their world. When it is time for the character to be fully seen center stage, they leave everything behind in the frame from which they came, embracing the totality of the empty stage. Characters: an ensemble of 8 players. All characters are representative of real people interviewed in person in San Francisco from 2023 to 2025. The script consists of their exact words and likeness, listed in order of appearance. Darlene, 76, she, her. Activist, spoken word poet, and arts nonprofit CEO from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Seemingly all-knowing in her expertise of San Francisco and jazz, larger-than-life persona. Paul, 50, he, him, L. Writer, performer, artist, and organizer from Chula Vista, California. Lives for his community and his artistry. Agatha, Aggie, 20, she, her. Media studies student at the University of San Francisco. Former Whole Foods employee, DJ. From Seattle, Washington. Healthy mix of joy and contemplation. Sophia, 29, she, her. Ex-Twitter employee. Willing to speak to what she can. Richness to her voice and insight. Focused on making the city weird again. Arrived her interview at a cafe in San Francisco via electric unicycle. Ashley Marie, 25, she, her. Hawaii native, but the Bay Area watched her grow up. Funny, insightful, chatty. Christian, 50, he, they. Bay Area native, tech bro turned traditional tattoo practitioner. Sarcastic, hilarious, and insightful as hell. Mary, 26, she, her. Bay Area native. Shift lead at Zoox, Amazon-owned autonomous vehicle company. Highly intellectual, empathetic individual who is contemplative on technology's promises and pitfalls. Professor Engel, 43, she, they. Computer science researcher and professor at the University of San Francisco from Omaha, Nebraska. Extremely calculated and poised in every aspect of life. On text. This play toys with the notion of theater as a public forum. Characters speak in a constant flow, hopping into the conversation when they have a relevant thought to add to the discussion. It's that feeling you get when you're having a lively discussion at dinner with your best friends. You have so much to speak about, you cut each other off mid-sentence. You trail in and out of themes and topics, moving where the flow of conversation leads you. What begins as a discussion on the meal ends up in a heated debate on existential philosophy. This play is to be performed as such. Anytime a forward slash is present in the text, the next character is to immediately begin their dialogue, with lines overlapping one another. This happens in the script when 2 characters have incredibly similar ideas and thought patterns. Certain words are underlined for emphasis. An ellipsis is present when the character trails off in their thoughts. On music. Music is vital to this text. The play is akin to a concerto. This piece contains original compositions which accompany each scene. The score will soon be made available following the script. The following songs are included in this script and are not original to this play's composition. Sentimental Journey, performed by Julie London, 1960. San Francisco, by Maxime Leforestier, 1972. Sentimental Journey live at Montreux, performed by George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic, and Belita Woods, 2004. There is to be an 8-person jazz band playing on stage with the actors, made up of the following instruments: piano, synthesizer, double bass, drums, jazz guitar, saxophone, trumpet, trombone. Each instrument represents the inner dialogue of each one of the 8 characters. The musicians perform with the characters, beside them in the character's frame. When the character begins their monologue, their respective instrument is highlighted in the composition. The following instruments respond to the following characters, respectively: piano, Aggie; synthesizer, Sophia; double bass, Paul; drums, Ashley Marie; jazz guitar, Sophie; saxophone, Mary; trumpet, Darlene; trombone, Christian. For this staged reading, music, compositions, and performances are by Michaela Brown. The titles and credits of the work can be found in your program. Production note: an initial abridged version of this play was presented at the University of San Francisco's Studio Theater on February 29, 2024, in San Francisco, California, with the following cast: Darlene, Jordan Premer; Paul, Oliver Ruiz; Mary, Megan Robertson; Agatha, Aggie, Carly Bradley; and Sophie, Kiana Yassini. Movement 1, Not Long Ago. A singular light emits from Darlene's frame, as if a remote has powered on a television screen. Nothing else on stage is yet visible to us. We see the older woman sitting on a rocking chair. She wears fingerless gloves and a denim jacket embellished with sparkles. From her ears dangle seashell earrings, which she would happily tell you that she made herself. She's reading the newspaper and humming A Sentimental Journey to herself. Darlene realizes that she isn't alone. She turns her head to the audience, seemingly taking in the presence of every seat. She mumbles something we can't hear under her breath, sits the paper down, and smiles.
Well, I'm going to tell you how it happened, and then I'm going to do the poem because it fits.
Darlene stands from the rocking chair and puts a record on the player. We hear A Sentimental Journey by Julie London. After the first verse, the song fades out into our band's trumpet composition. Darlene leaves her frame in pursuit of center stage.
I'm Darlene Roberts. And what else you want? My age? 27. Okay, 76. I was 18 when I first got here in 1967 from Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I went from Black Wall Street to Harlem of the West. Both of them suffered Negro removal, and none of it worked. Just temporarily. We're black again, like I like to say. We're black again. I was abused as a kid. I used to sit up and daydream out the window. I was trying to get away from the pain that I felt, and so my brother knew that it was critical to save me. So he sent for me. He was living out here in San Francisco. New wife, bless her soul, new baby, and he brought me out here because he knew I could get into City College. Even though it's 49 square miles, it felt so big. My brother said, okay, I can't remember. I think it was 10, 25 cents. Okay, go outside, go look around, go get on the bus. I said, I'm not getting on that bus. My brother said, just going out there, just get on the bus. It's 49 square miles. You can't get lost. I said, yes, I can. That's my specialty, getting lost. So I looked around. It was such a beautiful city. It's a beautiful city. It's the culture. It used to be the culture. I was a rock and roll girl. I didn't know nothing about jazz. But he worked at night, so he introduced me to his friends that were jazz lovers. So they took me to this club called the Both And. BOTH/AND. It's on Divisadero and Page. It's a martial arts club now. So we go in. It's dark. I'm already not enjoying it. It's cold and windy. We sit on the front row. I have no idea that that's like a $100 ticket. I was like, ooh, it was cold here and the wind is blowing. It's all dark. I want to go home. And this dark guy comes out like he was mad, just walking across the stage, and his shirt is open, and he scowls at the audience, and he turns his back to the audience and starts to play his horn, his trumpet. That was Miles Davis.
Darlene begins performing a spoken word poem, Jazz, A Sentimental Journey by Darlene Roberts.
I was there when jazz came alive. I remember I cried when I heard the first note. It stroked my psyche. It touched me and it flowed through my inner being. Jazz rhythms invaded my conscious dreams, and as I listened, I began soaring, and suddenly I discovered I could fly. Somewhere over the rainbow in the Fillmore, jazz was my pot of gold. Oh, there's an art for listening to jazz. Since I've been a jazz fan, I searched for the best bands because I sobbed when I first heard improv in a kaleidoscopic collage painted with cymbals, trumpets, drums, syncopated rhythms, violins, flutes, guitar, cello, mellow sounds all around smoke-filled rooms with jazz in bloom. Piano keys sway, saxophone, trombone, bass, sounds of velvet lace, and hearts uplifted by gifted musicians, black, beige, blue. That's why you'll find me bumping on Sunset or bumping on the Fillmore, but I get sick when the band quits playing my song. Not long ago, jazz was the flow, and heroes lived their dreams. Musically, jazz was a love supreme, a love supreme, a love supreme. And if you're with the flow, you too can go halfway to the stars in little cable cars, because jazz is a trip through fame. But to get there, you've got to take the A train on this sentimental journey. All aboard! First stop, the Fillmore, Harlem of the West. That's my story, because that's what really happened. It's just been incredible. Later, I wanted to do some research so that I could talk about it. You know what I figured out? That was the opening night of the Both And. I was sitting there like, I'm a relic. I'm a relic. I've been here forever. I said, this was the year. I can't tell nobody. Nobody can know. But I was there when they opened the door, and he was there. In the city then, there was a connection, a community connection, a cultural vibe.
Darlene's moment suddenly fades, bringing in Paul's bass as the composition becomes more modern. We leave the San Francisco of the 1960s, welcoming the Mission District of the 90s. Another television screen is turned on, and suddenly we can see both Paul and Darlene in full light. Paul is sitting in his frame, writing. He wears a 49ers football jersey. He looks out onto the audience, seeing a portal onto 24th Street. As he begins his monologue, he leaves his seat and takes center stage.
This whole street used to be covered with trees. It used to look like a big archway as you came down 24th Street. Both sides of the street had those ficus trees. They were huge. They were covered and basically like you couldn't even see the second or third level of the houses here because the trees were so tall and thick. I really liked how it seemed like you were going into a little forested tunnel when you came down 24th Street. When I got here in 95, San Francisco, particularly the Mission, all over. San Francisco was a very public place. Like, people were constantly manifesting outside in the street. And I don't mean homeless. I'm talking about organizing things outside. Whether it's performances, whether it was plazas to sell, you know, what you call street vendors now, right? That was really normal. Like, you could walk down Valencia Street or 16th and there would be people selling books on the street or selling, you know, their own handmade crafts, right? Everywhere you were around was always kind of like a cultural reference, always expressing something. You could never really walk in the neighborhood without somebody protesting or somebody informing you about a new political struggle. There was constant, like, activity. I remember I performed so many times at 24th and Mission on the BART station. I'm Paul Flores. He, him, elle. I've been a writer, performer, artist, and organizer in San Francisco since 1995. I came here from Chula Vista, California, to basically be an artist. I wanted to be loyal to California. I wanted to keep California as a motivator, as a kind of fertile ground to develop my work, my community, because I'm from here. I'm from California. I feel like the whole damn state, you know, Mexico and California, north, south, it's all part of my life. So I wanted to represent that. So I didn't go to New York, and I stayed here. And here is where I'm going to stay, not leaving San Francisco. I was attracted to the amount of action on the street, the vibrancy, the colors, you know? We have more murals in this neighborhood per capita than I think any neighborhood in the United States. There's 5,000 murals in this neighborhood, which is tons. That was always here.
A light emerges from Aggie's frame. The young woman has her feet propped up. She's wearing a gray hoodie. Her eyes are dark from the eyeliner drawn on them. She's been scrolling on her phone. Upon hearing Paul's colorful recollections, she puts her phone in the hoodie's pocket, hops up, and joins Paul center stage.
One of the first things that stood out to me was just how, like, genuinely colorful it is here. I'm Aggie Schumann. Aggie short for Agatha. I'm 20, going on 21, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm from Seattle. I was born and raised there, and then I just moved down to San Francisco for school in 2021. One West Coast city to another. In Seattle, everything's just a little bit darker. Like, everyone paints their house dark blues and greens, and so seeing how it really does genuinely look like the San Francisco you see in the media, like the architectural style, that's really what it looks like here. It's really that hilly. I think it felt really vibrant. It felt really crowded, but welcoming and comfortable. It wasn't super unfamiliar, even though it was my first time here, or basically my first time here. I think the other thing that stood out to me right away was how space-wise, how small it is.
You could find anything you wanted here, including friends, you know? It was easy to make friends, very welcoming. And everything
just
was
how compact it is.
Like, on top of you, never alone. Someone's always following you, always behind you.
We see Sophia in her frame, wearing a puffer coat and a Baggu crossbody purse across her chest. A natural beauty, her long, black hair flows down her back. She's mid-filming a YouTube video. Aggie and Paul's compact catches her attention. She pauses the recording and listens to Paul intently, ready to hop into the conversation the second he finishes his thought.
I used to love jumping from across the street and being in a whole new neighborhood, and all of a sudden the smells were different. People looked different, the houses looked different, the signs were in different languages, and you're like, oh shit, literally 200 yards. I was in another world, and now I'm in this world. And that was beautiful, right? I love that. I love that. And if you didn't do it by walking, you could do it by the bus.
When I got out here, it was like, people everywhere. My name is Sophia Tung. I'm 29 years old. My pronouns are she, her. I arrived in San Francisco to come work at Twitter. Basically, I got hired out of college my junior year. This was the first time I actually lived long-term in a major American city. I've been in New York. I've been in Philly, for a little bit, but those places were not so interesting to me. San Francisco is always sort of the this is where you want to end up kind of thing. It's the top, you know? If you're in tech, you want to go here. There's so much opportunity here, and yeah, I was I was heavily influenced by that.
This isn't a new thought to Ashley Marie. From her frame, she sits her iPad down and joins in the conversation. She is wearing a cardigan and necklace with her name written in cursive. The petite woman has a lot to say, so she takes center stage and opens her mouth.
Hi. So, my name is Ashley Marie. That's my full name. I like to go by Ashley. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Moving to SF was something I always had in mind. Surprise, because I wanted to work in tech. I always knew I liked tinkering with things. I liked figuring out processes. I liked knowing what was up and coming when it came to new technology. I knew I wanted to be in that industry. I just didn't know how or in what capacity.
So when I came out here, I was like, oh, wow, this is like, you can get around super easily. My first exposure to actually living in San Francisco was in the Tenderloin, the TL. I don't know if back then it was, I don't want to say undesirable, because that's not really what I mean, but like most of the interns I knew at the time did not live in the TL. Actually, basically all of them did not live here. They were like in Russian Hill or like Nob Hill or whatever, like Pack Heights, but the TL appealed to me. I thought it was lively when I would go out. There's a community there. I was super into just like skating around like on my board, because there's Chinatown and then there's the Mission and then there's like Financial District. Everyone's in suits. But then like once you get out of that, it's like there's parks and there's the ocean. If you want to be, surrounded by tall buildings, you can. But if you want to, sort of step out into nature, you also can. So like that duality was like really attractive to me.
Lights up on Christian in his frame. He's carving a tattoo tool with a small knife. He's still oblivious to the ensemble and the discussion on stage. All that concerns the man, in his crewneck sweatshirt and baseball cap, is the tool in his hands. As he meticulously crafts this instrument, he begins to take stock of his life. How has he arrived here, in this room? Where did it begin? He starts to speak to himself.
My earliest memory was my grandfather taking me to Chinatown. And I remember when we would go to Chinatown, take the bus. We lived in the Excelsior, right off of the Balboa Park station. And those are my earliest memories. I'd get on the bus, holding my grandfather's hand, walking up the hills in Chinatown. I remember him buying me a kite, but then I specifically remember the different writing that was there, and I asked him, and I didn't know. I thought my grandfather was Chinese. I didn't know. I asked him, hey, what does that say? And he said, I don't know. I don't know what that says. It's kind of like, well, can you read it? So I didn't know anything about that, but that was kind of the early memories. Here in the Bay Area, we're lucky to be exposed to this
The amalgamation of different cultures really got me like hyped up.
My name is Christian Cowboy. I just turned 50. And pronouns, he, him, they. I've lived in the Bay Area pretty much almost all my life. I've lived all over the Bay Area. I'm an immigrant. Usual story of grandparents coming here to escape a third world dictator. And then family comes over. We're really spoiled here. The different cultures, the food, the weather, transportation. I mean, we have robot driving cars and things like that. It's kind of normal now. It's kind of weird. But I really think that it is that. The culture, the mix of things. Out here, you want to go to the redwoods in nature. Cool, you could do that. You want to go to a beach? It's an hour away. You want to go to downtown, gritty city life? You could do that. You want suburbs? You could do that. So I think that, being able to go to snow, it's really strange and a privilege to be able to just, be able to go to these different places all within an hour away. And the diversity of weather, the people, I think that's one of the best selling points out here. I think it is really a rare instance where you can have all that. I guess the negative would be it's expensive.
Lights up on Mary in her hoodie and with her headphones around her neck at the mention of the cost of living in the Bay Area. She's caught scrolling on her phone. She puts the cell phone in her pocket and heads to join the conversation downstage.
You know, there's a price to pay for all that. It's expensive. We all know that. And yeah, sometimes we bump heads and things like that. Somehow we figure out, how to make it work.
Okay, yeah. My name is Marie Curie. I'm 26 years old. My pronouns are she, her. I work for an autonomous vehicle company called Zoox, so I'm mostly based in Foster City, and we do a lot of just data collection for fully autonomous vehicles. I've been in the Bay Area the majority of my life. I grew up in Pacifica and then stayed in that area until about my senior year of high school. I moved to the Philippines with my dad because essentially we had towards the end of my junior year of high school, we had a lot of financial issues and we couldn't live in the Bay Area anymore. Kind of like our house got foreclosed and stuff like that, and my dad lost his job. So we relocated to the Philippines because we had family over there that could help us out. I came back to the States after a year because I think living in the Philippines was a big culture shock to me, and I wasn't fully adjusted to the lifestyle over there.
I feel that, there's so much packed into the square mileage of the city. I sort of don't really need to be anywhere else to experience something interesting. You can basically walk out and experience something interesting any day. If you just give it a good hour or so of walking around and stopping and looking at things, I think that's the most important thing. It's just slow down and look around you and just look at what's actually there. If you stop and read any flyers or signs on lampposts or whatever, walls, a good half of them are going to be absolutely deranged. And if you go and read it and go what does this even mean? I think that's so interesting. And then sometimes if you pull those threads, you find weird things just random ARGs or whatever people set up, and you'll end up on a street rave or at some trading random objects or whatever.
Christian continues with his recollections.
Pre-pandemic, in the good old days, as some would call it, I would walk to work, grab a coffee on the way from Blue Bottle off of Mission, and, just slowly walk while everyone's kind of frantic trying to get to their job. And I'm just, looking around and, just people watching. And I had to walk all the way from 9th and Mission all the way to Embarcadero. And so that's a good, half hour or so. Walk slowly and, take different ways and, all right, let me get a donut at this, corner mom and pop place. And then, you get to work and, do your work, blah, 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 all that. But, the fun happens after work. I can go across the street to Google, pretend I'm gonna listen to some blockchain, thing. But then eat all their food and, put some stuff in my bag. Or I can go to 111 Mina, which is a gallery downtown where I used to do a lot of work, art-wise. And, have a few drinks, see what, who the DJ is there, or what art opening. They have this thing called Sketch Tuesdays once a month, where they invite all types of frustrated corporate people that want to be artists to just sit down and just draw and put their art on this blank wall. Buy it for $5, give it away for free. I'll just trade mine for a beer. And, or I can go to something within the Filipino community or some other bougie, Trader Joe's red wine art gallery show. So there's just so much to do. And those are good times. That is to me those perfect days. And I've done those maybe 1,000 times. And yeah, there are times that I miss it. But, I think we can kind of recreate that, in the future in a different way. That's much more scalable without being unsustainable.
Professor Engel is visible in her frame, raising an eyebrow. She's been sitting at a desk in front of a rather large computer monitor. She wears a cardigan, which she readjusts often. She takes her glasses off, turns her head away from her computer, and opens her mouth.
I came out to California and instantly fell in love with it. I moved to San Francisco in 2010. My full name is Sophie Engel, Professor Engel. Age, I'm 43. I generally use she, her pronouns or they, them pronouns. I really like gender-neutral language, especially in my profession. I'm a professor here at the University of San Francisco in the computer science department. Did I remember all that?
Professor Engel leaves her frame and joins the rest of the ensemble downstage.
The fact that so much is going on in this area is pretty amazing. Pre-pandemic, at any time, you could go to all these different tech companies, take advantage of their food and drink they have available and listen to some really fascinating speakers. And in that way, it was really accessible. And I really was very excited and enthusiastic about having that level of access. It was so different from the spaces that I had access to before.
I like to say that this is a more recent thing that I realized. I'm 25 now, so my frontal lobe is fully developed. Kind of crazy. So now that everything is fully loaded, I like to say that I'm born and raised in Hawaii, but the Bay Area watched me grow up. The Bay Area has been really integral to my identity, my personhood. My family back home, they're big Niners fans. So I grew up listening to Bay Area hip hop. I get asked often if I grew up here because I rep the Niners so hard. My family back home just loves them. This isn't Ashleyism, but I think a lot. I think a lot, period. But I think one aspect of the Bay Area culture that I hold dearly is the music and how much we value art. The music keeps me here. I think that feel-good vibe that I'ma just go crazy, go stupid. A lot of that kind of exists in the people here. I think there's a specific type of pretentiousness in each city, in each major city in the U.S., and I feel in San Francisco, I'm the most compatible with this type of, pretentious, We all just kind of like to be flashy, but, in a quiet way. And I think it's, hip-hop and rap that talks about living in the Bay. I think I most especially connect to that because it's, trying to make ends meet with, all the hustle that goes on and, navigating life with, this urbanized, attitude saying, hey, the city is still here. The heart of the city is still here.
Paul comes back into the dialogue.
It used to be the freak place. You could come be weird here, and you would be accepted, and folks would kind of even encourage you to be weird, Do crazy things out on the street. That's what was so attractive.
As the music picks up, our first movement ends with each character in a trance-like state. Daydreaming about their love for San Francisco. Okay. Movement 2. Live art, right, folks? Movement 2, static in the record. Suddenly, the bass takes over our composition, and there's a spotlight on Paul. Something's happened. The adoration and excitement that once lined his face has turned into an urgent sense of grief. We can feel his loss.
When did this city start to change? When my friends started getting evicted. My friends started getting evicted in '99, and I always tell the story. We had things called eviction parties, because after a while, so many folks were getting evicted that it was clear that this wasn't this was being coordinated and organized for a specific reason. Because why were all these young people getting evicted? And it was clear that this was a hot neighborhood all of a sudden. A friend of mine got evicted, and she fought as hard as she could to stay in the space. And what we did was, we actually found out where the landlady really lived, and we organized, all of us, to go to the landlord's house and bang pots and pans in the landlord's front, right front door, and just disturb them. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, bang, bang. At night. And we were doing kind of guerrilla tactic to protest gentrification by harassing the landlord, just like the landlord was harassing my friend to get out of the house, right? And she was like, no, I'm not going. And ultimately they brought the sheriffs and took her out. But what I remembered about it was trying to do something about it, even though it didn't work. Our pots and pans didn't convince the landlord not to evict somebody. But it was the first time I felt like we're not going to take this lying down. You know, that was something that began to inspire other people in the neighborhood to figure out ways to protect themselves from eviction. And I want to say that gentrification is violence. And that's also what I learned, is that gentrification is economic and cultural violence. Because it's displacing people, and that makes them vulnerable to anything on the street, right? Including homelessness, harm, you know, all kinds of traumas. And so many of my friends went through that, like just one after the other. Boom, 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 boom. Until I got evicted. But by that point, I already experienced it and knew that, you know, it might be coming my way. So I got evicted out of my spot in 99. And that was really simple because it was what everybody did here. People started tearing down old stuff and putting up new designs that didn't fit the character of the neighborhood. You can see it now. You can walk down some blocks, it'll look like, oh yeah, this is cool. Like, from the 1920s, 1910s. Wait a minute, what the hell is that? Like a matchbox? Some of this stuff, it's painted black, it doesn't fit, right? Looks totally different. Like the character, the continuity of the neighborhood is broken.
It's wounded. It's wounded from all the disappointment and all the things that it was robbed of. I got a job at 18 with the Economic Opportunity Council. That was the beginning of the EOC, the year I came, under Congressman Ronald Dellums. He wasn't congressman then. And you see all the crime that's going on now? All the robbery, all the snatch grab, that's happening. I go down to these associations and when I speak, they want to throw me out. I say, well, just look in the mirror someday and understand that you caused this. Because these people, you've moved them out of their homes and now they can't afford to come back. And now they're getting moved in and around and around and around and finally, they're houseless. And there are no programs in the schools. We always had things to do. Our community protected us. We policed our own community. I go to Dolores Park, Dubose, because I used to live over there, and it takes me back to when I was 18. My brother lived on Walter, right off of Dubose. Listen to me, on Walter Street, we all knew each other. Neighbors of every ethnicity. We'd see the Chinese man's kids. What you doing here? It's after dark. Come on, I'm taking you home now. I mean, we knew our names. We knew each other. We supported. It was our community. We didn't hate each other. We didn't mock each other. We didn't cuss each other out. It's not the same. I'm in Alamo Square, and people look at me oddly, like I don't belong there. And I've been there 43 years. Just imagine. And when I joined the Alamo Square Neighborhood Association, I said, are you sure you guys want me here? Are you sure? They said, hell yeah, we want you here. And then, when they call the police and start talking about the police, saying, oh, we don't feel safe, clutching their pearls, it's like, well, yeah, you changed the community. Their homes are gone, and nobody's investing in them.
Paul adds to Darlene's recollections.
This is when I started to see hella conflict. Cultural conflict where newcomers come in and they want to force the changes on the locals and the locals fight back. And it was a lot of sides being, decided, which side are you on? Are you like supporting gentrification? Do you even know what that word is? And a lot of folks would like myself. I'm not from here. I'm a transplant. I was always on the side of the locals. I was never on the side of the gents. You start to wonder, did I inadvertently cause gentrification by moving here? Did I make it safer for other folks like me, or maybe a class above me, to come here? Do we make it safe by being here? Do artists make neighborhoods safe for white people and people with money to come in and take over? Do we take away the danger of being in the hood? You know what I mean? That part bothered me because I wondered if me and my artist friends are making this a safe place to take over for people with more money than us. I think that's a legit thing to think about. That was when I made a decision, how much I was going to fight. And that's what my art had to become about gentrification. And pretty much anybody that was around me and who was coming of age in that era, pretty much all of our art was centered around gentrification, and we haven't stopped that. You know, it's, if you think about, like, you know how socially conscious artists from the 60s were focused on, you know, peace and anti-war for hella long? We've kind of been anti-gentrification for about 20 some odd years in this neighborhood.
Christian jumps in.
One thing that I've realized, if I talk to elders, people that came here to express, you know, in the 60s, the hippies, experimenting with free expression, blah, 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 all that, I think that spirit kind of still lives on. But then it has become sort of like this capitalistic expression of, like, products. Like, everything's, like, commodified. So while the attitude of, like, hey, I'm going to come here with $5 and build a startup for $1 billion, you know, is similar to, you know, the person that comes here and I'm going to sing at Golden Gate Park and, you know, have a hit song, you know, kind of become Bob Dylan or Janis Joplin. So I think that spirit is still here, but what's changed is the money. And, you know, as, you know, when money gets involved, you know, it just compromises things.
I live in Lower Pack Heights right now. I think that a lot of people kind of approach moving to a new place and take it as theirs or treat it as theirs. Having an awareness of, like, just, like, learning about a place that you've moved to and, like, knowing some history and, like, kind of trying to be involved in multiple communities can be really beneficial to, like, make the city still be the city that it's always been and, like, not marginalize the people that are really from here and the people that deserve to belong here. I think there's a lot of people that maybe don't have the same outlook that I do about San Francisco in that way. Like, people that have moved here and, like, that's like giving myself a weird pat on the back, but I don't know. It's just something I think about a lot. It's not even that I think I go about it perfectly, but just, like, having that on my mind.
The Bay definitely feels like home because I grew up here, but I think it's definitely a lot different than how it was. Like, now I feel like it's a lot harder to, like, get by if you don't have, like, I don't know, a stable job. It's really hard to make ends meet over here, so I feel like we lose a lot of, like, small shops, you know? Like, a lot of big corporations taking over, even a lot of tech companies. I mean, even they're, like, relocating, right? Like, a lot of tech companies are now relocating to, like, Texas, from what I've heard. So it's kind of, I don't know. I feel like they kind of used us up. Like, a space here, and now they feel like they're content, or whatever, now that they're just going to try to get another city to sink their teeth into. So, yeah. But I feel like, I mean, even though, like, just as much as I would love to, like, as much as I would like to hope that there's more, like, small shops and stuff, it's just not realistic, you know? I don't know. It's just kind of sad.
I think being in the tech industry gives me, like, this insight. Like, I think I know what's going on here. Am I okay with it? Not really.
I was at Twitter when COVID hit, and then I was like, okay, I'm at my cliff. I'm pretty done with Twitter. The internals were trying to be careful. Even now, I think there's still some stuff I can't really talk about, but it was a little bit of a mess internally already. I would say I was not having the greatest time, so I was like, okay, I'm sort of done. I ended up leaving Twitter. I worked in the back-end development on some Twitter anti-abuse, anti-spam system. A lot of what we dealt with was trying to prevent bad actors from hosting and accessing the platform. You know, when you grow to a certain size, you're always going to have to expect that there are human bad actors that use the platform for nefarious purposes. So we sort of tried hard to cut down on abusive bots. I don't know if any of those systems are currently surviving, or if they are, they're probably not being utilized or significantly restricted. Because a lot of what we're trying to actively fight against is now exclusively allowed by the platform's new owner. It sucks. I would have liked to have seen it become a better place to keep being built, but that's clearly not the case.
My first semester of school, I didn't work, and then I kind of blew through my savings. I just applied on Indeed for a position at Whole Foods. I hadn't had a lot of work experience to really understand the effects of what it being an Amazon-owned company really did. The palm print thing? No thanks. It was, like, scary when I first heard about it. The way I see it, it's got to be the type of thing that it's like tech is moving too quickly for regulation to keep up with it, you know? And somebody's going to be like, this feels ethically weird eventually.
Christian continues.
I try not to be so Amazon Prime and, my patience. I guess it could be a generational thing. Growing up, I went through this transition of, record players to CDs to MP3s to Spotify, Went from, newspapers, magazines to, Kindles. Calling people on payphones to pagers to cell phones. So my perspective is I still find it amazing, even though it could be detrimental to us.
It's a natural progression. I think it's natural that, you're finding new ways to develop things. You're finding new ways to approach, certain problems. I think developing technology is expected. It's inevitable and it's natural. And therefore better because we're getting better in our evolutionary process.
Christian adds.
I'm still amazed by, the driving cars. I took my, niece and nephew in it, and they didn't give a shit. They're on their phones. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is amazing. This thing is driving us, and it's stopping for pedestrians, is a better driver than I am, or what you will ever be. But they weren't interested because it's become so normalized. I guess even though it was their first time, they've already seen these things.
You asked about Waymo. I feel for the people. Human drivers, for example. I think their jobs are probably going to be mostly replaced. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. Road deaths, human-caused traffic accidents, it could go way down. I think that's statistically been proven already. On one hand, you're removing jobs, but on the other hand, you're improving safety. What do you want to prioritize? Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. It's sort of like a huge ethics question, and I don't know if anybody can be 100% right about any of it. Yeah, I'm conflicted is mainly how I feel.
Paul steps forward.
Right here. I watched a cruise car hit a homeless dude, and the homeless dude got up and threw a bottle at the car and just starts beating on the car. I saw this. There's nobody in the car. Someone behind the car is beeping. Beep, beep, beep. So, what are you guys railing against? Nobody's going to listen to your rage. It's just a car. So that part was really wild for me to say, where do we put our frustrations with AI, right? Where do we put them? Where do they go?
Everybody's super focused on the rise of AI and stuff, right? I think, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? I can't really say. Certainly there's a lot of bad facets to it, like the fact that most of it is trained on work that is essentially stolen and then regurgitated through statistics black box. That's really what it is. There's no intelligence. It really is just a box that nobody really knows what the calculations it runs. They're in the end just comparing statistics. It's like stolen stuff run into a black box and then regurgitated out. That's not to say it's not helpful. I think it certainly can be helpful if you apply it correctly. But I think a lot of what we're seeing right now is just not so helpful stuff that people are making just because they can and because they want to strike on the next big thing to make themselves rich. Essentially, that's what it is. There's only a few companies that are actually not even companies, a few individuals who are actually doing interesting research around what could be. I try to keep up to date on what's happening because some of the things like the toolings and the advancements that are coming out with the AI hype bubble are genuinely useful. But at the same time, I sort of feel like I don't want to participate in it.
The vibe I get here, at least from my perspective, is it
at the
feels
end
like
sort of a
rat race.
I feel like being a part of a rat race is what burned me out of big tech to begin with.
Going into the industry was big. It was another culture shock for me. Everyone's just kind of doing their own thing, and like no one's really slowing down. Everyone's just kind of like at a fast pace, and they just want to. Everyone's just going and going, you know. No one really has the time to just kind of settle down and relax over here. Have you ever heard of Wall-E? Yeah? Well, I have a picture like that where everyone's just kind of like, everyone's relying on this little robot to do things for you. I think overall society is just going to become more lazy than they are now. It might be safer, sure. Because we're relying on AI and technology to do things for us. So things are more calculated, but even the things will get done faster. Like just the fact that we're depending on these machines more. I don't know. I just feel like it's going to slow down our society as a whole.
I don't think there's any escaping it. I don't have nightmares about AI taking over the world. I think I'm more worried about what the AI actually does or learns, and I worry less about that and more about how we interact with it and how we rely on it almost, and what we do already. But I feel like there's so much discourse about it that I'm almost kind of over it.
I was just talking to my bestie about this. It's such a San Francisco thing to be talking about. You know, I'm always talking about AI. I think a lot about that song, Pilo. Do you know Pilo? No? He's a Bay Area rapper, and I think he has a song, Put Me On. And there's a verse, I'll send it to you later. But it's basically there's a line in the song that says, something moves quick like AI. And I think about that a lot. What does he even mean? Because AI wasn't a big thing maybe a year ago. It was starting to get big.
I'm okay, this is such a weak position to take, but it's what am I gonna do about it at this point right now? You know? Maybe I can get off social media or whatever, but it's where I stand right now, I definitely see both sides of it. And I also see us just being really entangled with it already, and it's so what's there to do about it? One thing I think is really pertinent to this is that you can't go back in time. When I break it down, maybe I would really love to live in the technology-free world, and maybe I would really love to revert to my hunter-gatherer roots or whatever, but it's here we are. Maybe I have this perspective just because I happen to be one of the beneficiaries of being in a wealthy country that gets to have our silly little self-driving cars, and I have my iPhone and my MacBook, but I actually can't change the entire course of human relationship with technology. But if I have an issue with how I'm personally interacting with it, or how I feel it's personally interfering with my life, then that's something that I can have autonomy within. I think there's a lot of change that a lot of people, including myself, would like to see in just kind of the democratization of the way that we interact globally with technology.
I think instead of finding a way to advance our technology for the privilege, rich people, we can use that technology to help people that actually need help,
I would think technology in San Francisco is good if it included us, but it doesn't. I don't give a doggone what happens to technology because .com tried to come for me when they were getting ready to kick me out of my place. I don't care for it because it's exclusive, and it's systematically exclusive.
Christian notes.
Right now, I am a traditional tattoo practitioner. It's known as a hand tap, which is a manual way of applying tattoos. After high school, I did go to the Philippines for a vacation. I ended up living there for 10 years, to go to school and study and just experience life. When I came back, well, when I finished school, I worked a bit for an internet company. But then the internet, .com kind of bust. I've always said, like, I have one foot in the tech space, the tech bro space, and I have one in the activism art space. So it's like, I'm like hating myself. But I look at it like my friends will call me a spy. Hey, you can go to Salesforce, you can go to this, you can go to Airbnb, because I go to those spaces. And, you can, like, try and get us money. I would kind of work and try and get my friends and people that I work with, artists, culture bearers, and nonprofits, try and get them in these spaces where they wouldn't be able to. So I use my privilege in that way. Soma Filipinas is the cultural district, official cultural district here in California. We're sitting in it right now. And about 7, maybe 8 years ago now, me and some artists, the community members, said, hey, we're going to put together this nonprofit to pitch this district to the state of California. So it officially happened. And then we were challenged, like, well, what does it mean? Does it mean just to have events? How does it look visually? How do we recreate, Chinatown, Japantown, Little Saigon, Little Italy in a place where people no longer live? Or we don't have the capital to buy land. Businesses have moved out, so what does it look like? And the first thing that we did was, let's throw a party. So we had these legendary parties called Undiscovered. The first one, I think, was in 2017 in the old Mint building. It got so big that the fire department had to shut us down. And that was kind of the start of, like, what you see now, like the Thursday nights. All of that was kind of the start of it that we did. But my role there was sort of like an advisor role, where being as an artist, but then also being in these tech spaces, corporate spaces, and all of that. And kind of like, how do we get those folks that maybe don't live here but work here? How do we get them involved in building this community?
Paul thinks on his own cultural preservation work.
One of the reasons why I stay on 24th is because it has changed, but not as much as many parts of the mission. 24th Street, has a cultural district designation, which means it's meant to preserve culture. One of the fights against gentrification that we were able to win was getting a designated cultural district. It basically means that there is a governing board who receives funds to invest in the businesses, the residents, to help them basically maintain their culture through either, supporting their business sales, creating more resources. So this is a Latino cultural district, meaning we preserve Latino culture.
It's really exciting to be where a lot of innovation is happening. I would also say it's the source of a lot of downsides of culture that exist within tech and computer science. Kind of a lot of that comes out of Silicon Valley and some of those attitudes. And so it's been like a battle to make sure to create like a different kind of space. I don't love sort of like the tech broness of a lot of the different spaces in the Bay Area. And that's been one of the things that's just really been amazing about being here at the University of San Francisco, is being able to build a cultural counterattack.
Christian adds,
I look at the technology as a superpower. I remember people were saying, like, you draw on an iPad, you're not a real artist. When digital cameras came out, oh, you're not a real photographer, you need to use film. And we know the technology never rolls back. It's like, all right, milk delivery. People are complaining because there's refrigeration. We didn't take away refrigerators. So putting it to like the historical context, I think that, it's hard to, for me to dismiss it. But I understand the issues there. Like, I have friends that are art directors and stuff that lost their jobs, because of AI. Like, just within the past year. It's so fast. I know students that are graduating next year as graphic design majors from University of San Francisco. It's like, oh, shoot. Good luck. I know it'll put people out of work. One of the reasons probably I lost my tech job is because of AI, I knew this was kind of coming. A lot of the project management can be done not by AI, but someone that can manage the AI, that understands it. So, I think that's why I've kind of gone kind of the opposite, where it's like, all right, well, I'm going to do this traditional tattooing. AI can't do that. Robots, at least not yet. I like the duality of it. On one side, I'm like, all right, latest technology. If I could think it, I'll draw it. I'll come up with automated systems. But then I can also, well, let me spend 8 hours making a tattoo tool, made out of bone and wood. And I guess that's, kind of like, I don't know, maybe it's a way that I'm kind of protecting myself from the criticisms of like, hey, you're using AI. And I can say, hey, but I'm also doing this manual thing that's been a tradition for thousands of years. Maybe in the future there will be robots that will be able to do these types of tattoos. But in the context of like as a cultural practice, that's, spiritual in ceremony, human touch and hands and little mistakes and things like that give it the texture, That is pretty hard to replicate. I think that the people that come to me are not necessarily like anti-technology or anything like that. I think they're looking for balance. I think some people are looking for the static in the record. And that's what my tattooing is, a static.
As the band plays the movement out, the ensemble chat amongst themselves. Mary, Christian, and Paul strike up a conversation. Sophia flags down Professor Engel to speak. Aggie checks messages on her phone. Darlene and Ashley Marie talk. Where to go from here? How does this love and grief coexist?
Thank you all. Be back in 10 minutes.
So I'm an actor.
You always say that, but you've never done it. You're like, when? When I was 12 years old. It's actually not. I laughed at it, unfortunately. After but it's true. I just went out. How was it? I want to figure out my hair Monday was like, it's like manic. I'm like, on child and my mom, like, oh wait, like, there's someone sitting in the back room of your she's it was fun. Yeah. And they had a spot for you. Yeah, so I got there early. Well, they got there at 11. Oh, okay. It's kind of quiet at that point. Quiet-ish. I mean, it was still fairly busy. Right. That was not okay. I love that they have the back support is much nicer. Yeah, I know. Like, I was trying to explain this to I was like, yeah, no, I don't do my pierogi thing. Like, I'm used to anymore because I can't compete with how they do this. And she's like, what? And I'm like, oh yeah, like, San Francisco, so there's like attractive men and women dressing up in costumes. Well, he was something. I don't know. I can't remember it. Like, there's nothing. I don't think Monterey came close. He came close. He was like, just in. Right. I really liked his crust. And it was like he had like all this bread and like crust that was like made of bread. Yeah. So, you know, I don't think he's really. Like, no. He can't. That is amazing. It's a lot of thought. I was really knowing God as a woman. I mean, that one?
You know what my question is, Ron? What is he going to do with all this stuff if he can't sell it? He's moving. Are you going to is he moving? Yeah, that's what he's like. I really need you to say it on the phone when you got in the car. I was on the phone with him, and I was like, I just want to confirm, like, for sure that you're going to want it because I'm moving. I kind of really need it out of this by tomorrow, like, for sure. And I'm like, yeah. But in my head, I'm also like, what are you going to do if I do that? It's tomorrow. Are you leaving it? Are you going to leave it outside? Because I have your address now. I'll go check. Right. It's in Oakland. Here you go. Because he's driving it to the city. Because the city is going to drive it up for me. Did I show you the side tables already? Yes, the tables in the lamp. Yes. He's going to bring those. And maybe this big table. Yeah, table. Two layers. Okay. Oh, it was the long lamp that you were trying to question. Copy. I think that's so interesting. He's trying to finesse him, but he's not. Which is like, sir, you sound desperate. Yeah. I'm doing you solid. I'm making such an impulsive decision to get these things too. Like, I was just, because I deleted Instagram. Okay. So I've been scrolling on Facebook Marketplace to Instagram. So now I'm just like, I don't need it, but I'm over here. I like it.
Darlene taps Ashley Marie on the shoulder. She invites her back up to her frame, where Ashley Marie chooses a record for the player. San Francisco by Maxime Le Forestier begins to play. The record is worn and crackles with a slight distortion to the composition. The ensemble nod in appreciation at the selection. Eventually, our band takes over. As Paul is speaking, Darlene and Ashley Marie head back downstage and join the group.
How can our community survive? The technology, it doesn't create the unity it's supposed to. It creates division. And what I mean by division is it creates, like, distrust. And that's the part I don't like. And so sometimes I fear that, technology is going to make us less safe, and to go explore in the real world and make us want to stay at home and do everything from our digital devices versus going out and enjoying the differences of meeting a stranger, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. Are we just going to, trash the environment and try to hide in little boxes with our screens? I worry about that. That's the part that scares me, because that's not really community, I don't think. But I think they try to tell you that it is. There's something that they're saying. Isn't it great to be able to have, access to your own personal device and then do that in separate spots with other people? And part of it is, I don't know. I worry about that. Because this is a spot that benefits from people living closely together, solving problems together, expressing differences in their own ways. I think if it gets really bad, I'll leave, I think. I think that would probably cause me to leave. If I can't feel connected to community members face to face, if I don't feel there's a benefit to going outside, then this isn't where I want to be.
Oh, that's heavy. Maybe I'm just really pessimistic, but I feel like we lean into more technology as we depend on it more. It brings us less trust in each other as humans, And also, in terms of human connection, I feel like it will be harder to establish, genuine human connection because we're so reliant on, just technology and how, instant, instant gratification and stuff like that. I feel like it'll make us more impatient and, I don't know, cold and distant towards each other.
In San Francisco, I hope that people can humanize each other a little bit more and sort of critically take a look at the way that tech has influenced marginalized populations of the city. That's not to say I don't think that Silicon Valley should exist and that none of these techies should be here or whatever, but it's it just creates such a divide.
Tech is a consequence of what the Bay Area is. It's Bay Area culture to be innovative. I can't say that, the innovation that's happened supports the Bay Area culture that backs it up in the first place. You know what I mean?
Tech will always be part of the Bay Area culture. That's tied to it. I think that it's an interesting clash of cultures like this. More inclusive, more, progressive or liberal Bay Area, San Francisco culture coming into clash with the tech culture and how that's transforming. And what I hope is that that culture helps transform tech and not that tech transforms the culture. I would say that it is the direction that it's going, although I still have a lot of frustrations with it.
I think people are redefining what it means to be living in SF. I think that in order for you to have to stick around in SF after the pandemic and still be here, it takes a certain kind of mindset and mental attitude. It wasn't until last year that I started considering maybe I do want to raise a family here. Seeing the Bay Area through the pandemic, seeing the Bay Area outside of my college land, I was oh, there's a really big community here. I see the ways that it manifests. Like your neighbor on the street just wants to say hi. Like they want to lend a hand if they can. It feels less individualized now more than ever. I think for me, I always thought about moving home. I always knew that there's like a feeling of community in Hawaii that like I always appreciated, but that exists here too. So I never really thought about it seriously until early last year maybe, that I would consider having a family here, like settling here, raising kids here. It was such a surreal moment.
Christian adds,
I'll always have roots here, and with the people that are here, you know. I help in different areas. Like right now, I'm working with a community in Alameda that's trying to take what we've done in Soma as a blueprint to replicate it over there. And the city likes it. They're throwing a bunch of money to, you know, small businesses there. The Bay Area is near and dear, but I want to have the privilege to be able to choose where I can go and not just depend on the Bay Area or depend on this whole country as we're at right now. You know, I was thinking like, man, what could I do? I just could wait it out. I could just live on the beach, some surf town in the Philippines, if there's SSS still, you know. I could totally do that and just tattoo tourists.
Why did I stay in San Francisco? Where am I gonna go? I hope that San Francisco gets its act together, cleans up the homeless problem, cleans the city up, bring housing, affordable housing. I'm not talking about their version of affordable. I'm talking about the realistic version of affordable, because I worked in affordable housing and it's not affordable. So that I want to change. I want us to invest in our kids, programs to uplift, to educate, to encourage, to support.
If prices come down, will people be able to stay in San Francisco and sort of make San Francisco weird again? But like weird through tech, I guess. I think counterculture has always been sort of an evolving thing, right? Like before counterculture was like, you know, the hippie movement. And then before that, the counterculture was like, you know, there's been so many movements that have come through San Francisco and it's all counterculture. But like, there's also a counterculture in tech. It's not happening here because all the interesting people aren't able to live here. They're in the East Bay, Alameda, or like spread out throughout. But if we're able to create an environment where those people can come together and gather and basically create a community in one place, then more of those things can happen, you know? Movements can start. That would then end up affecting the greater technology sphere for the better. I'm sort of trying to do my part in bringing back a little bit of that counterculture, I guess. Do you remember like this was in the news, but there was like this big parking lot with all the Waymos honking? I'm the one who did the live stream. And that got in the news, and a lot of people sort of thought that it was like a counter-protest to Waymo, but really I just thought it was fun. So I'm sort of like doing like weird little projects like that aren't, you know, like everybody seems so profit-driven in the city. But I think like fun things like that are what makes San Francisco special. I think you need like interesting people, or I guess weird people, to make that happen, to bring the weirdness. If we don't maintain an environment where people can survive, you know, being weird, then the city loses its culture.
I feel like the Bay Area has a lot more to offer than just being like a tech place for techies. As we get deeper and deeper into the tech industry, it's a lot harder for like those things that were once part of the Bay Area to like overshine that. You have to have some hope. Otherwise, you know, you might as well just move to a different city. But I feel like a lot of the things that we used to like be, especially in San Francisco, things that we used to love about SF, like, are just, I don't know. We haven't been properly like taking care of our city.
It's clear this is the end, for today at least. The ensemble looks at each other. Do the characters speak with one another? Do they dare? A light envelops Mary. The composition begins to fade to Mary's solitary saxophone. Mary tries to approach Darlene. Darlene's trumpet comes in. Darlene steps to greet Mary, but Mary suddenly turns away. The connection. What if it's too much? As quickly as it came in, the trumpet is gone. Darlene is dismayed. She walks back into her frame. Back to the chair, back to the paper. The rest of the ensemble has returned to their respective frames, similar to how we saw them in the first movement, but changed somehow. Sophia, Ashley Marie, Aggie, and Professor Engel are seemingly consumed by their devices. Paul is back writing. Christian is back chiseling away at the tattoo tool. Mary is still center stage, not yet decided on whether or not to enter her frame. Her saxophone dies out. After a contemplative and silent moment, the first and final complete silent moment in the play, Mary takes the headphones from her shoulders and places them over her head. Sentimental Journey, live, by George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic, and Belita Woods begins to play. Mary dances along with the music as she makes her way back to her frame. Maybe she sings along. Somehow, even though the music is only heard in Mary's headphones, the ensemble feels it. The how is not important. The why is. Each in their own way responds to the music. Maybe they sway, hum along, or tap their feet to the rhythm. After each ensemble member has responded to the music, the band comes in over top of the recorded track. One by one, each frame is turned off, as if a remote has powered them down. Mary dancing in her frame is the last thing we see as the lights dim. End of play.
We'd love to hear your opinion and any support, financial or posting on social media or just thanking us or one of the actors would be really helpful. So thank you all so much. Enjoy.
That's so bonkers.